You are listening to Think Theory Radio. Radio. Hello and welcome to Think Theory Radio. This is your host, Damian Perdue. Here with Paulie C.
Yo.
Running the boards over there. And we got Zoe in the back running the Facebook Live. So if you're on Facebook, check us out. Go to the WCPT page, WCPT820, and click on the live video link. And you can check us out live here in the studio in the luxurious WCPT 820 palatial studios. That's not sarcasm. And today we are joined by Norman Basile, paranormal investigator. How's it going, Norman?
All right, Damien, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, not a problem.
This is a perfect fit for Think Theory Radio. And for those of you who listen to the show, you know all the stuff I talk about. For those of you who don't, this is ideas and concepts outside the realm of mainstream thought. So I think your expertise comes in great right here.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Yes, it's there, yes.
So
absolutely.
You've been doing this for over 30 years.
Over 30 years. I've been doing ghost hunting and paranormal investigating for quite a long time.
Right.
I actually precede Ghostbusters, or, I was like one of the first around in this industry. So
Yeah.
I just didn't come up with it, lately or anything like that. I'm
Right.
kind of old school.
Okay.
So.
And how did you first, was it like, it's not like something you take in school.
No, absolutely not. But it's something I've always been interested in.
Okay.
I mean, I've always been interested in the paranormal or the supernatural, as you want to say it. But, I was kind of experiences like when I was a kid.
Okay.
Okay, for instance, like in my grandmother's house in Ohio, I experienced, ghostly activity there. And for instance, let me give you for instance. One night I was sleeping in a bunk bed. My uncle was on the, was it either the top bunk?
bunk?
I think it was on the top bunk. Okay. Anyways, when I go back to that, I was on the lower bunk. And, I had woken up and I seen this figure coming towards me. And I called out, I says, "Is this Uncle Paul?" And, it wouldn't answer me. It just kept coming more forward towards me. And I eventually got up and I ran through this figure, okay? So Uncle Paul was still sleeping. This figure came towards me. I ran through it. And later on, Grandma, of course, told me that, yes, the house did have ghostly activity in it. Hats would move around. They would feel cold spots, things of that nature inside the house. But I think at an early age, I was always very interested in things like this. I was actually born in a haunted hospital, Little Company of Mary.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, oh, yeah.
Where is that located?
That's out in Oak Lawn.
Okay.
All right, and so I was actually born in a haunted hospital.
I feel like most hospitals are haunted, right?
Well,
I always feel like there's something in there when I'm in the hospital.
well, that's true. That's true. But it did have a particular story. So
Okay.
I mean, it was kind of like here I am, a Ghostbuster many years, or a ghost hunter many years later, and now I was born basically.
Born into it.
Born into it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at what point did you decide to do it professionally?
Well, it back in the early '80s, I said to myself, this is something I want to try and pursue more further.
Okay.
Okay. And in order, it's not something that you just kind of like go out and just. I guess you can go out and just start doing it, but professionally wise, you got to gather equipment, you got to gather camera equipment, you got to start reading up on the subject. I mean, research, investigations. People got to take you seriously,
Right?
Okay, because otherwise, they're not going to call you up. I mean, I don't drive around, in an old ambulance or anything of this nature, and I don't have proton packs. But yeah, I do actually, though. I can get rid of spirits. That's what kind of offsets me from the rest of the people out there.
Okay.
So if I come into a house and I feel it needs a cleansing, I can actually cleanse the house.
Okay.
To actually settle down the spirits, or actually get rid of them if we have to. I did train in exorcisms with a priest, so I know what I'm doing,
All right.
and as far as that goes.
Well, earlier
So
you mentioned cold spots. We were talking about your grandmother's house. What is a cold spot in terms of?
cold spots are generated by ghosts or spirits. Okay, no, I don't really classify ghosts as being supernatural, anyways, because ghosts are nothing more than human beings that have passed on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when you talk about ghosts, now there's a lot of other different classifications of the supernatural or the paranormal world, which we'll talk about. Okay,
Yes.
so I can get it clear, but so they can't do anything more than what they've done in their human life.
Okay.
Okay, let's say pick up a glass or
Right.
move objects around, basically because they don't realize they've passed on.
Okay.
Okay, they don't realize that they're dead, so they may do these things to try to get the attention of people. They don't understand where they're at. All right,
Hmm.
they're lost. They're in a realm between ours and the spiritual world. All right, for some reason they may not want to go on. But get back at the cold spots. Cold spots are generated by them. What they actually do is it's almost like air conditioning theory. They pull the heat out of the room,
Okay.
okay, and they use that energy. It's they're sort of like a battery. They're drawing on it.
Okay.
All right, so therefore they cause that cold spot to happen. That's what they're actually doing. They're pulling the heat out of that particular area that they're in.
Yeah.
All right, in order for them to generate enough power to maybe move a glass or move an envelope or move keys or objects. Okay,
Yeah.
some of the things that you might see in the movies, for instance, like where you see objects flying around and stuff like that, and people say, well, that's a poltergeist, okay? Poltergeist is a German word which means noisy spirit, okay? In some classifications, it's really not a spirit at all. Most poltergeists are caused probably by children who are going through a stage of their life, okay, where the energy might escape them, okay, and therefore it runs rapid in the house. It's almost like if an energy form just got loose in the house and it just run and until it burns out, okay, you're going to see activity, or you might see activity only when that person's in the room. Now, I'm not just saying that it could happen with children; it can happen with older people as well. There have been cases where that's happened. Okay, the most famous poltergeist case of all was the Bell Witch case, which happened back in the early centuries. Okay, and no matter where the person went, the poltergeist followed.
Okay.
Okay, so the energy was attached to that person, like an umbilical cord, attached to them,
Yeah.
and it went on for years and years. Now, these types of activities can burn themselves out very quickly, or they can go on for years. Okay, and then your other classifications that I like to talk a little bit about, of course, is demonic entities. Okay, to me, they're a rarity. I mean, you've seen the movies, you've seen all types of things about exorcisms and things of that nature. Are they real? Yes, they do exist. It does exist on a rare form, though.
Okay.
Okay, it's not like it's an everyday thing. Hauntings you could find going on all over the city in Chicago. Okay, there's all kinds of haunted cemeteries and spots and corners and bars and
Right.
restaurants and things of this nature. So those type of other types of things happen on a rare count.
Okay. So the
Okay,
poltergeist and demons basically
right.
are more rare than just like
More rare than a
typical
regular
ghost
haunting. Okay,
haunting.
hauntings can go on for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Hmm.
Okay, or they can also calm down. Sometimes, there's a lot of theories that, like, on the anniversary of a death, like for instance, if somebody died in a house, and on that anniversary, you might see that spirit. Okay,
Okay.
just on that anniversary. Then again, they might go into a limbo state, and you might not see them again for another year. All right, and this also could be the reason why some houses become haunted, and then all of a sudden they don't anymore. All right,
All right.
like the Amityville house, for
I was going to
instance.
bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was that a poltergeist or that was a
Well,
haunt?
I mean, I only know from my research.
Yeah.
Okay, that it was an Indian burial ground.
Right.
Okay, they did have a lot of activity there. Of course, only witnessed by the Lutzes themselves. Okay, and some of the other, I don't know how many other witnesses. Now, I've been out there.
Right. I was going to say
Yeah,
you've actually
I've
been
been
to
to
the
the
house, right?
Amityville house. I did a little investigating, talked to the townspeople, things of that nature. I didn't get inside the house. They wouldn't let me inside the house. I was prepared to try and get inside the house. It was something that I always wanted to see and do. But at the owners,
There's somebody still lives there.
oh, they still live there. Oh yeah, actually the house was just sold recently. I think it sold for like 1.5 million or something like that. But I mean, nobody's actually seen. They say they don't see any more activity in the house. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that activity didn't exist before.
Right.
Okay, so a lot of people will say, well, why isn't there no more activity? Because, like I said in the past, if it was a haunting, for instance, if it was a haunting, that haunting can cease. Okay? It can stop. The activity can't stop. Or maybe it was attached to a person that was in the house, and then when they left, it stopped. Okay? It could have been poltergeist activity. These are all things that people don't look at, you know, when they say, oh, that's fake or it isn't fake. Well, this is what could have happened, and, you know, that's the reason for it not being there. Now, you know, as far as it being demonic or anything else like that, could it attach itself to something, to a house like that? Absolutely, it could. But, you know, again, demons themselves, okay, as far as demonology goes, you have to call them. You have to call these demons up, okay? They're just not going to show up in your doorstep and say, hey, I'm here, all right?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work like that. All right. So, you know, it may be done through people practicing witchcraft, people practicing, you know, doing Ouija boards or, you know, things of that nature. Okay. Yeah. And that's how they're going to show up on your front doorstep.
Now, if it's okay, if you said if it's attached to somebody, is it typical for, you know, whatever kind of spirit to stay within the location, or if the person leaves, does it follow them to a new location, or is that?
Oh,
like
yeah, it's
more
very,
rare?
very possible for them to follow a particular person to a location.
Okay.
It will attach themselves to their energy. Okay. But most hauntings are localized, whereas, let's say, like Aunt Jenny died in the kitchen. Okay, she slipped or fell or whatever it may be, got electrocuted in the kitchen, let's say. And then she might stay in that particular area because that's where she died. Okay, so she's caught in that little realm of hers there. You're not realizing she's dead, and she'll kind of stay there. Okay, so yes, hauntings can be localized. I mean, I've experienced it myself. I mean, you know, going out to some of these cemeteries and things like that I've investigated, we've heard things walking back with us out of the cemetery, but then stop. It's almost as though there's like a door slams in front of them and they stop. Well, that's probably because they're localized and they are in that particular realm right there, and they can't go any further.
Some kind of barrier.
Yeah, something's stopping them from moving out of that particular area. Okay, so these are the kind of things that, you know, that are out there.
Okay, man, that's great. And how many of these have you investigated?
I've investigated hundreds of cases.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've investigated a lot of different cases. I mean, I've had a lot of good cases out there, but I mean, nothing on the realm of, you know, like you might see in the movies.
Right.
You know?
No head spinning.
No head spinning. no stuff like that. But I have seen quite a bit of things. I've heard quite a bit of things. I mean, I had a case out in St. Charles, for instance. Okay. And which I got passed down through other paranormal investigators that didn't want to investigate the house. So I actually got a crew up together, and we went out there and we investigated the house. And I do preliminaries beforehand. Okay, I'll sit down, I'll talk with the couple or the persons that are involved with the case. All right, to see if it warrants even going out there.
Right.
You know, I mean, a lot of people make these things up naturally.
Of course.
I mean, they want to be on TV or publicity.
Right.
For, you know.
Or they might just have psychological issues.
They might have psychological issues. I've ran into that a lot of times too. But I mean, so my process is that I interview the people first. Okay. I have a series of questions. All right. And from there, I don't know whether or not they're lying to me or not, you know, whether or not they're trying to, you know, falsify this thing or not. And I've seen it 1,000 times. People do it. But anyways, once I get through all the questions and stuff like that, then if I think it warrants an investigation, then I may take a few other people with me. I may take a few psychics with me, a few other people that are, you know, involved with us. And then we'll go out there and we'll, you know, the first thing I do when I show up is probably start taking pictures.
Okay.
All right. You know, I'll take pictures mostly outside, you know, because it's going to get dark eventually. And I'll usually take it with infrared cameras. I have black and white film. I have colored film. Back in the day, I even used to use a Polaroid, you know.
Okay.
So I would get instant pictures, which actually worked very, very well. Okay. But from there, you know, we'll go into the house. We'll start looking around. We'll see if we can feel anything. You know, with the central locations of the hauntings, things of that nature. I may even do a séance in the house, which I can do. You know, to see if anything is actually going to happen. You know, or talk to the spirits themselves. You know, which you can do. I mean, you can talk to the spirits. I mean, whether or not they're going to answer you is
I was going
another
to say,
question.
do they talk back?
Yeah, which is another question, whether or not they're going to talk to you. But, you know, I may do something like that, and then, you know, somewhere down the line, you know, we may spend the night in the house. We've done that.
Yeah.
All right. And, you know, for instance, you know, in the St. Charles case, we did experience a lot of different things. I mean, I heard footsteps coming up and down the steps at one point, okay? And I was near the doorway, and I could actually hear them, something running up and down the steps.
Okay.
All right. Now, some of the other claims that were there, like windows being broken and then they left the room and then the window was put back together, I didn't personally see myself. You know, beds being thrown around the room. They said they felt people touching them at night. You know, rocks being hurled at some of the family downstairs in the basement area. They had this little crawl space down there, and he had some rocks in the one area. And he says that they were being hurled at his kid one day. Okay, these are some of the things that they claimed.
Right.
Not that I actually saw personally, but I did get some good photographs of the house. I did really get some good photographs after developing them. Most of the time, the infrared film produces your best results for spirit photography.
All right. Well, speaking of photography, when we come back from this break, you brought some pictures with. So for the Facebook Live people, we'll show them on camera, and I'll try my best to describe them for the listeners. And if anybody wants to give us a call and get in on this conversation, or if you have questions for Norman, hit us up at 773-763-WCPT. That's 773-763-9278. And we'll be back with more Think Theory Radio. Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. This is Damian Perdue, and I'm here with Norman Basile, paranormal investigator. And we're just starting to get into the meat of the supernatural and the paranormal. And before the break, we were talking about the spirit photography that you do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you've brought a ton of pictures. So luckily, although we are on radio, we do have some cameras.
All right.
And, yeah, so like I said, if anybody's on Facebook, check us out on the WCPT 820 page. And, if you want to scroll through, you know, show a couple to the camera here.
Can I see it from here?
Yeah, should be able to, yeah.
Okay.
And then,
well, this is a house in St. Charles where the one that I actually investigated. I'm sorry about that. This is the house in St. Charles that I actually investigated. And you can see the two lights that appeared on there. Now, this is infrared film.
Okay.
It's not seen by the naked eye. Okay.
Okay.
But when the film will pick up on energy, it's meant to pick up on any type of energy. But to me, it's best with spiritual energy. So you can see the two things right there, what look like balls
two
of
kind
light
of floating
or orbs.
eyes.
Right. And then there's a figure here. I don't know if they can actually see that.
Yeah, that one looks
another
like there's
face
kind of a
right
half
there.
of a torso.
Right,
two
a half
faces.
torso. Right, exactly. But what's interesting is that in my next shot, you can actually see where they moved from here to over
to
here.
the other side of the door.
The other side of the door. And then from there, they went from the brick wall into the back.
Okay.
Okay. Now, to explain it, to me, because this house was over Indian burial ground. How we know that is because when we went out there and I started walking the land, I saw these mounds out there. And when I did my research, it was they had what they call the mound people.
Okay.
Okay, and the mound people used to bury their dead above the ground and then put the mounds over them.
Mm-hmm.
So, from what I understand, when they were building some of these houses out in St. Charles, they disregarded all the burial grounds and they just kind of dug it all up.
Right.
And some of the mounds were still out there, but this is why probably some of this activity was existing out there. Okay, you're disturbing the dead. Naturally, nobody likes to be disturbed, especially the dead. Okay,
Right.
So,
Just let him sleep, man.
but anyways, I kind of look at this as almost animal-like, because when you look at the photographs,
Yeah.
you see the one there, then you see the one here, and then you see this one. It's almost like it's scurrying.
Yeah, kind of almost like it was like running away from
Running
you.
away from
kind
me.
of,
Yeah, exactly. Running away from me and hiding. So that was that one. That's interesting. Now this one here is a picture of the Woodstock Opera House.
Okay.
All right, and it was haunted by a young girl called Elvira. Now they got an actual seat up there, movie seat, theater seat, and they have a plate on the back of it. It says seat number 113, and Elvira sits here. But if you look up in the upper balcony, I actually did catch.
Right. It
Picture of
looks
her.
like a figure sitting
Right,
there.
figure sitting there. Now, what happens is a lot of people, when they'll see the seat sitting down, like, almost like, how the seats flip up in movie theaters? Well, they used to anymore.
Right. Right.
They don't do that anymore. But when they would approach it, it would flip up as somebody just got up out of the seat
Oh yeah.
and then moved away. Okay.
Well, that's
So
creepy.
I did catch a figure of her, which I thought was quite interesting. This was another house out in North Carolina that I investigated. And if you could look up into the upper window there, you can. It might be hard to see.
That one, yeah, you showed me some of this during the
Yeah,
commercial
but you
break.
can
that
actually
one looks really creepy
You
because
can actually see the face.
like very detailed face there.
Right.
And this also is an infrared camera.
That's infrared film. Yes. Now this next photograph, everybody probably can relate to out there. This is the Amityville house. I actually caught what I consider to be the pig eyes. Okay, they always talked about Jody the pig and the eyes in the movie and things like that. And I don't think anybody's ever really captured a photograph of it, but I actually think those are the two eyes right there that I captured. Now that was with 1000 speed color film.
And it looks similar to the two floating orbs from the St. Charles house, the first one you showed.
Almost like it. Yeah, absolutely. Now again, house was buried over Indian burial ground.
Right.
So maybe there is sort of a connection there. This one here was in West Virginia.
Okay.
And this was a Civil War plantation, and I was just doing random shots on the outside. And if you look right here in the doorway, you can actually see.
Yeah, it looks like a face with the hands pressed up against the glass there, kind of like halfway down. Almost like a child, well, the height of it looks like a child, kind of.
Okay.
It's wild.
Now, this one is a cemetery that's located out south. If you look here, right in the corner area, I actually caught a figure. It looks like he's wearing a suit.
Yeah. I can see the shoulders.
You can see the shoulders.
Like even like a tie or something.
Yeah, you can see the tie on there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's wild, isn't it?
Now, why would a ghost still wear a suit, though?
Well, probably.
After all that time, you figured you want to take the suit off.
Buried in the suit?
Right?
Yeah.
That's true, yeah. It's like, I never liked this suit.
Or he's
I'm
just
stuck
a
with
professional ghost.
Professional ghost.
There you go. Nice. Now, this is Bachelor's Grove, which a lot of the listeners might be familiar with.
Okay.
Which we can get into in a little bit. But
yeah, definitely.
This is the road leading right in front of the Bachelor's Grove. This is the road that goes down it, and then the cemetery's here, but this is the side of the road here. If you look in my photograph, you can see two figures right here, and you can almost see a figure with his arms up in the air.
Oh, yeah.
It's as though they're following
Right.
each other. Where they're going, I have no idea, but maybe back towards the cemetery area.
Okay.
But, yeah, you can see the two figures that I caught right out in front of the cemetery right there.
Now, yeah, before the show, we were talking about, because I asked you, you've been to tons of graveyards and cemeteries.
Oh, absolutely.
And I said, what's your favorite one? And you said Bachelor's Grove.
Bachelor's Grove.
So why don't you, because I'm sure people are familiar with it, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't really know what that is. And what makes it so supernatural or haunted?
Bachelor's Grove is located off 143rd in the Midlothian Turnpike, sort of near Crestwood. It's kind of off the beat.
Okay.
It wasn't meant to be like that. But
Yeah.
what they did eventually is they built a road around the cemetery. It used to go past it.
Okay.
All right, and the cemetery there is back from the early centuries. What it was, a bunch of German immigrants actually settled out in that area, and then they were single men, so they were bachelors at the time, so they decided to call it Bachelor's Grove.
Okay.
Now, there were a lot of Indian wars out there, a lot of paved over Indian trails and things of that nature, too. Bachelor's Grove is sort of like what I consider like a power zone. For some reason, like the Bermuda Triangle, etc., where energy will linger, okay? Of course, if you look back in history on it, it also had a lot of, there was a lot of bodies that were floating in the ponds from the 1920s, from the gangster era and things like that. People going out there digging up graves, disturbing, tombstones and satanic worshiping, which I've actually seen signs of it. We found, I had a tour out there one time. We found animals hanging from the gates, and so they've actually had things of this nature out there. And these are the sort of things that will stir up energies out there, okay, per se. And Bachelor's Grove, of course, being so far back and off the path, people can do these things without being, noticed and things like that.
Okay.
Okay. But there is a lot of energy out there. I've witnessed it myself. I mean, let's go for an instance. I was out there with, I had a psychic friend at one time, and we were out there, and I had set up all my cameras. We said, okay, let's spend the night in Bachelor's Grove. Let's see what we can see, or what we can capture. So we were out there one night, and we were kind of like back to back. I says, you watch this half, I'll watch this half. Let's see what we see. And basically, a few hours had gone by, and nothing really was happening. It was kind of spooky out there and what have you. And then all of a sudden we would see these streaking lights. We didn't see orbs, but you would see a light streak, and they were colored, and they were just going through the cemetery. All of a sudden they were red, then they were blue, and then we saw some gold ones. And Rudy was his name. He was facing the other way, and Rudy goes, oh my God. He goes, look at that. And by the time I turned around, I didn't see it, but Rudy had seen a full figure entity there, and it was all golden, according to him. Yeah. And by the time I turned around, it, of course, disappeared. Now, these things can happen in a matter of seconds or minutes, of course, And if you're not watching for it, or you can't see it, you are going to miss it. I do have a photograph somewhere in here that I actually caught a figure sort of like that in that one area. But the funny part is that before I could actually say boo or anything, Rudy had already gathered up the equipment and was running down the path. Unfortunately, I had the keys to the car, so he wasn't going too far. Okay. But needless to say, that ended our night that night. But Bachelor's Grove has been famous for all types of things. They've seen, horse and carriage coming in and out of the pond. They've actually seen a house that comes and disappears and appears in near the cemetery area. Spiritual entities sitting on tombstones, disappearing. Cold spots like you wouldn't believe. I mean, you could, if you're entombed and you go out there, it could be the middle of the summer, like right now, 90 degrees. And I guarantee you, it's almost like stepping into a freezer out there. You will actually feel like it's cold, like chilly cold. And you could step out of that area and it's warm, or you could step back in that area and it's chilly cold.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was looking up some of your investigations, I saw the Bachelor's Grove, and I saw that people later on kept going, and there were a couple more pictures. There was one recently, I forget the woman's name, but she took it in like 2011 with a digital camera, and it was very similar to this one, this kind of electrical looking light form, and she had a really good picture. So if you get a chance, look it up. It was from 2011. Okay. So it's interesting that different people have taken pictures in the same area and have produced similar footage.
Similar ones, yeah. Absolutely.
And you can see that it just has like this electrical charge.
Sure.
And that's kind of something that I get into, on the show, because I kind of, like I said, I'm a skeptical believer, but I definitely believe in spirituality, but I'm also into science.
Okay.
And I get really into like quantum physics,
Okay.
and I think that there's a lot of similarities between quantum physics and ancient wisdom, and quantum physics is kind of showing how everything is energy. Every matter
absolutely.
and everything exists is pure energy,
Right.
right? And I was actually reading this book about consciousness, and it was talking about the consciousness. They still can't figure it out. Science really still can't explain what consciousness is, but they believe it resides in the brain. They believe that it's a set of electrical pulses, right?
Right.
So in physics, all energy that came from the beginning of time, from the Big Bang, exists now. There is no new energy, and energy doesn't die.
Energy does not die. Energy can change forms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and but it can never be destroyed.
Right.
Okay, so it will move, it will change forms, but it will always cease to exist.
Right.
Okay, so it's the same thing. It's the same logic
Exactly.
with
So that's what I
ghosts.
was thinking. It's like,
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
consciousness kind of transcending into something else,
Absolutely.
and then for whatever reason being trapped in these areas. That's, I guess that would be the kind of the link, if you could
Right.
figure out why these spirits or poltergeists or whatever get trapped in these areas.
Well, a lot of times it's because they haven't moved on, or they've had, like for instance, somebody dies real fast and they don't realize they've passed on at that moment. They may sound kind of silly,
Right.
but I mean, if you die real quickly and your conscious mind hasn't had a chance to think about it, okay, like some people, they die in a bed or something like that, for instance,
Right.
in a hospital.
Yeah.
Okay, they have time to think about their death. Okay,
Right, right.
Therefore, they
Come
might
to terms
right
with
to
it.
come to terms with it. They might move on. Somebody who dies very quickly, though, on a spot, let's say he gets shot or they get stabbed or whatever, they might not have had that kind of time for their conscious mind to say, okay, I am dead.
Yeah.
Okay, or I am dying. All right, and therefore they're kind of like trapped there. They don't realize they've passed on. Okay, and it could have been because of a tragic death. It could be something they had left undone. They buried something. They want somebody to know about it. It could be a whole
Right.
series of reasons why that entity is actually there. Okay, and the particular reason in Bachelor's Grove, some of these people, like I said, the cemetery's been disturbed quite a bit.
Right,
Okay?
right.
And anything that, and here's another thing, which they found, that a lot of times these entities get attached to their human body. Okay.
Yeah.
So therefore, they will not move on. Okay. Somebody who's probably been cremated, they'll move on quite faster than they would if they were buried.
Okay.
So they're more likely to haunt the cemetery where they're buried at because, it's their body. That's what they've known all their life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So therefore, they're kind of still attached to that.
Right.
So therefore, they might just hang out there. So
Yeah.
that's one of the theories.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you know what? Before we take another break, let's get to one of the callers here. We got Frank. What's going on, Frank?
Hi, Damien. Fascinating show.
Yeah. No doubt.
And your guest just touched upon what I wanted to talk about. If, let's say, somebody's a boozer or a druggie or something like that, and he or she passes away, I'm assuming, and this could be partially Buddhist philosophy, they're going to be close to the earth plane. So they become a ghost or something like that, and they still want those drugs. They still want that booze or something like that. I was wondering if you can ask your guest if your guest has seen any connection between people who might be possessed by, let's say, low spirits when they're alive. They're boozing too much or they're drugging too much, and they pass away, and they are close to the earth plane, and they could be haunting a specific room or anything like that. Has your guest heard of any cases like that?
Well, I mean, we do have a few haunted bars in Chicago.
Plenty of haunted bars.
Yeah, plenty of haunted bars out there, but it's an interesting theory. I mean, it goes back to the fact that, that person died, as a boozer or a druggie, okay?
Right.
And, of course, yeah, they could still want to possess that same
that addiction.
That they had in their past life, of course. Yeah. I mean, that's very possible. Have I heard of anything like that really in my investigations? No, I have not. I'm sorry to say that, but the theory is solid. I mean,
Yeah.
I can understand how that could work.
It makes sense too.
Makes
I mean,
sense.
I think
Yeah.
an addiction, and it's interesting too because when you call, your addictions are your demons, right? So then if you die, it's like your demons are haunting you, and
Sure.
you can't rest. So yeah, that's a good question, Frank. And we're going to take a quick break right here on Think Theory Radio. We'll be back with more of your calls and more with Norman Basile.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. This is Damian Perdue, and I'm here with paranormal investigator Norman Basile. And before we get back into some of the questions I have for him, let's take some of these calls. Let's get to Andy as a comment on Frank's call. What's going on, Andy?
Andy, right here?
Yeah, what's going on? You had a comment on Frank's call?
Yeah, yes, in regards to that, I agree with half of that. There's a lot more to as far as your attitude if you die in any particular way. It really doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's where I think where you were at in your life. Hey, like me, if it were to happen to me today, I don't want to hang around. Most of these people, it could be an attitude. I mean, I forgot what book that I have read in the past when I was, I don't know, I'm 55 years old now, but it must have been when I was 18 or something like that. I read a book or read something, an article in regards to when you die, you have a choice, look how traumatic your life just ended, and you don't even know that. Like he said, you don't even know that.
Right.
But once you realize that, like a Whitney Strieber or some bishop from California wrote a book in 1955 or 56, which I can't find.
Okay.
And he actually visited, his son visited, and he called back. He was strained. He was strained or being strained where in the realm where he was at after he had committed suicide. When he visited Europe, they were on a sabbatical. Either way, this is during 65 when that happened, but he started experiencing things about that time, right after his son had committed suicide. I don't know if it was true or not, but it is a book written. But he was explaining on how his personality, the personality of the son that he lost at the time, and he continued after he was already passed away. He was trying to communicate with his father.
Okay.
Which was a bishop. And it's weird. It is weird, and it all depends how because we're like some books say that you're still judged in your dreams because your soul is still alive.
Right.
While you're dreaming. So that's kind of deep, and that could be mathematical. It could be mathematical because if they can do that they put you under a electronic component and you can see waves and things like that. So it can affect it. So I put that down to mathematics.
Okay.
And,
all right. Well,
our biological, we are all connected in math.
No doubt.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for the call, Andy. I'll try to find that book you were talking about. And let's get to Paul in Seattle. Talk about spirits. What's up, Paul?
Well, hey, what's going on? Well, here's one for you, and this would be like the meaning of spirit. And so this is what occurred to me. So for years and years and years, some of us, some of my close people, when you get together on New Year's Eve, there'd be 7 of us. It's Dale and Gail and John and Lisa and Paul and Sherry and Carol.
Okay.
And we'd go out to dinner, and we'd come back to the house and go down to the basement and play cards. and listen to his jukebox. My buddy Dale has this. He's got a 1960 Wurlitzer jukebox that holds 145s.
Nice.
He's got 2,045s, but he picked 100 to put in. He picked 145s to put in, and that's A and B. So that's 200 songs, right?
Right.
So this happened in 2015. So, and then at 11:59, we'd switch on the TV to watch the fireworks or whatever. So this particular night, right as we turned the TV, this is right at 12 o'clock. What came on the jukebox was Auld Lang Syne. Right at 12 midnight. And so we thought, well, what are the chances? I mean, what are the chances that any song on that jukebox would come on right at 12 midnight?
Right.
But because the way the things, everybody's pressing their buttons, you just go, J2, I want J2. People are pressing buttons all night, and of course that song would be pressed, but the fact that it played at midnight right exactly was uncanny, and we thought, God, what are the chances of that? That's just weird. It's coming right as the ball's coming down, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so it turns out that was the last year that we were all together. Because one of us passed away. It wasn't the last year. It wasn't the last year that we were all alive, but the next year, one of us was so sick with cancer that we didn't play cards. And then she passed away. So that was actually the last night that we were all together for our years and years New Year's Eve card game.
Oh, wow.
And the Auld Lang Syne came on right at midnight.
Yeah. There you go. No, that makes, I mean, I'm all about synchronicity and stuff like that, so I could totally see, that having to do with, kind of a last goodbye kind of thing,
Yeah.
That's interesting, man.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, thanks for the call, Paul.
Sure.
All right. And back to Norman here. I know we were talking earlier, and your years of experience, and not just that, but you've led a crazy life with a lot of different professions.
Absolutely.
And you're working on a book.
Working on a book.
On a novel, actually.
It's
right?
a novel, and we haven't published it yet. Okay, and I went through years of trying to find an actual writer, and my stepdaughter was the writer. I was the creator. Her name's Ellie M. Chandler. She's a phenomenal writer, phenomenal. And we're coming out with a novel. It's called The Devil's Knocking, and we're looking for a publisher soon. Okay, but we're editing the book now. But it's going to be a crazy book. I mean, super exciting. It's a page flipper. It's a movie in itself. It really is. It's really going to be great. So, when it comes out there, I'm hoping everybody's going to pick it up. Maybe we can come back and we could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah,
too,
definitely.
And
what? So you've done. I mean, you're martial arts.
Oh,
what else?
I've had 11 exciting professions. Yeah, some of them. Me and my wife owned a martial arts school as well. I was a bodyguard for a couple of the boys out in New York.
We're not going to name any names.
No names. And then, I've dabbled in bounty hunting. I was a mercenary. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff. So, it's kind of like a conglomeration of that and my life and my wife and everything. It's really going to be phenomenal. It really is. It was very well written, and I can't wait till we actually get it out there so everybody can start reading it.
Yeah, it sounds great, man.
Yeah,
I'll definitely like to check out a copy of it.
Yes, absolutely.
And our other Paul here at Think Theory Radio, Paulie C, the Shiv. What up?
What's up?
He had a question for you about Resurrection Mary.
Yeah, Norman, I was just wondering if, with Resurrection Mary being probably one of just the most popular stories in the area, if you've had any sort of encounters or anecdotes or stories just about her or maybe Resurrection Cemetery.
Well, Resurrection Cemetery, of course, it is a popular spot for, people to go see. The gates used to have the two handprints. I don't know if anybody actually remembers that, or if you remember, where there was a police officer actually going by at night and saw somebody had thought that somebody had gotten locked in, and they saw a girl shaking the bars. Okay, and everybody might not know this story, and shaking the bars real hard like they had gotten locked in, and when they went over there. The figure had disappeared, and when they looked, there were 2 hand indentations into the solid steel bars. Okay, and you could actually go over there, and you actually could put your fingers in there. Now, I've never personally seen Resurrection Mary. Okay, I've done a lot of research on her. The Willowbrook Ballroom has burnt down since then. Since it used to be called the Old Henry Ballroom back in the days, over there in Willow Springs and right off of Archer Avenue. But Archer Avenue itself, again, okay, and Resurrection Cemetery is some sort of power zone over there. It is all paved over, Indian trails and things of that nature. So Resurrection Mary is unique only because she can actually form herself into a human being for a matter of minutes or seconds or whatever it may take for her to get into a car, okay, direct them past the cemetery and then disappear. That's a lot of energy. She's got to be drawing something from somewhere, okay, to almost look human in a human form, because I don't know too many spirits that can actually do that. But Resurrection Mary seems to have that type of power to do it. Wow. And it might be because of the area itself, okay?
Right.
And I've caught in some weird lights and stuff out in front of the gates. But personally, I've never seen her at all.
Okay.
But, it is a great story, and people can go by there. I since then, I know they cut the bars back out. They cut them out.
Yeah.
So people can stop coming by the gates. But, maybe you get lucky some night you might see her, if you go by it. But I know they took the bars out. So.
Well, speaking of bars, because I like a good beer every now and then. Might have one later. You were talking about haunted bars in Chicago, right?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite one? Because I'd like to go check one out.
Well, they have
a good IPA there.
They do have several of them. The Green Mill, which is up
north.
north.
I love the Green Mill, man.
Yeah. The Green Mill is haunted up there.
Al Capone's.
Oh yeah. They have several of them. They used to have another one, and I forgot the name of it. But it had a haunted. It was an actual booth there, and you could actually sit in it, and you could actually feel the spirit.
Okay.
Okay, that was in there, and I used to take my tours through there. Excuse me, but the name of the place escapes me.
Okay.
This
what area do you remember? Where?
It was up north.
Okay. Well, like uptown or
north of
Rogers
the Loop.
Park? Okay.
North of the Loop. Somewhere up near DePaul.
Was it? Did it used to be called Flounders? Do you remember? Was it on Clybourne? Because so next to Pequod's Pizza, there's a bar there. Now it's called Beck's, but it used to be called Flounders, and they used to do ghost tours. Would come there all the time.
Okay.
And they actually had some of these ghost hunters go in there and had all their equipment and everything.
Sure.
And so it might be there because it's right by DePaul.
It's not Red Lion Pub, was it?
No, the Red Lion Pub happens to be another haunted bar in the area.
Okay.
Okay. No, but again, the name escapes me at this point in time. I don't even know if it's still open or not. But we used to take people in there, get a drink, and they used to be able to sit in the booth and actually feel. You could actually sit there and you would feel something in between you.
Yeah.
Or something, like touching you or a cold spot or something. It was interesting. But there's quite a few, bars in the Chicagoland area that have history.
Right. Well, it makes sense because what do you call liquor?
Well, spirits.
Spirits.
Wow.
There's a reason for everything.
There you go.
And before we get going, is there any? Do you have any kind of online information that people can get in touch with you? If maybe people out there need an investigator, or
if they need an investigator, they can always reach me at home. Can I give my number?
Yeah, if you want to give it out, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, they can always call me at 708-622-8530. And if you got something out there and you need some help with, give me a call. I'm always willing to help or talk to you about it. All right.
And your email is knocking3times@gmail.com?
Correct.
All right. So, So people out there, if you want to get in touch with them.
Now, is that the number 3 or is it spelled out? 3?
Oh, spelled out 3.
Okay.
So knocking spelled out 3 times @gmail.com.
Yeah.
And, man, it's been great having you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'll definitely have you back because there's a ton of questions we didn't even get to. I want to next time I have you on talk about all these ghost hunter shows and all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And talk about, the kind of criticism, skeptics and stuff like that. But thanks again, man, for coming on the show, Norman.
I'm glad. I had a great time.
I'm glad, man. It's been a lot of fun. And I want to thank all the callers, great callers. And thanks again for listening to Think Theory Radio. Check us out next week right here on WCPT 820.